All right. So let's see. Let's create here a like we were working last time that my laptop died on me. Let's create a project. Remember, this is the Eclipse J2EE. You should already have downloaded it, played around with it, perhaps try to create a very simple web application, just a hello world application, just to get your feet wet. Although many of you have heard that you're very familiar with Eclipse. Some of you are using NetBeans, which is fine, or any other IDE that you might feel more comfortable with. That's okay. I'm going to be covering Eclipse. Okay. So I'm going to create a new project, and web. Then I'm going to create a dynamic web project, and I'll call it. Let's build some forms like we were just doing earlier. Okay. So how about a form editor? Form web form editor. Okay. Also, I've already configured Tomcat. It's installed in my machine. If not, you can create a new one and point to the Apache version that you want. You'll need to tell it where is it physically. You'll need to tell it where in the directory folder it is. I have already, so I'm not going to do it again. Okay, so this is the version that I created earlier. I've selected it, and I'm just going to go through each one of these. I'm not going to choose anything else. I'm just going to say finish. Sure. Okay, it wants to change to a particular view. Close all. And so here I believe we already tried this last week. We tried to create something simple, a very simple JSP file. Hello.jsp. And in here, we saw that we could embed Java, or if you're doing C#, this is very similar. You have you could embed C#. Here you could do for loop int I0 I less than 10 I plus plus out.println hello, and then plus I, and then we can run this real quick in that embedded environment. No, not Mongo. Run on the server. So this is going to start the server. If I don't already have a server running, I might already have a server running. Let me see. Let me try. Let's see if it fails. Okay, no, it didn't fail. All right, I think I configured it to be to a separate. So there it is. So it's working, right? We can view it in a real browser, right, and you can embed all sorts of HTML to make it a little more interesting. So if this is UL, right, we can embed this perhaps inside of a LI, no, not L1, LI. And I can refresh that, and it becomes a UL, right? Anyway, so it's dynamic content generating on the server as opposed to dynamic content generated on the client, right? If it's in the client, you would use JavaScript to do the same thing, right? But we're not. Maybe towards the end, if we have time, we can cover a little bit of that. Anyway, what we want to be able to do is access data from the database. So let's create a database here. For CS5200, let's set this to be the default schema. And I don't know, what tables do I have here? Oh, I don't want any of these tables. Let me create a form in here. Let me create a new SQL. And in here, let's, can I make this bigger? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we can create table form, and in here we'll create maybe name, and this is varchar 25, and this is a primary key, not null, and that's it. We'll just leave it like that, right? Okay. And let's insert into this table. What? Am I missing something? Varchar, oh, comma. I'll make it smaller a little bit. Let's insert into this table. So insert into form values. So this is the movies form that we had originally, right? Or we can have several, and we can have several fields in here, right? So let's create a couple of fields. So maybe we have create table fields. Oops, this is not JSON. Name varchar 25. This is primary key, not null, and we might have also the type of the field, also varchar 25, and we have what? Oh, we're missing a comma somewhere. Yeah. And we might have also a reference to the form that we belong to. So we might have a form here, which is also varchar. And this is the form that we belong to. And so this would have to be a foreign key, right? So we're going to say that this is a foreign key form. I hate this. MySQL Workbench. So it's a known bug, actually. It's a known bug. Let me kill it and we'll restart it. MySQL Workbench. It's the look ahead, the type ahead, right? It gets stuck. Oh yeah, see, it remembers everything I typed. Okay, so form. So my key form references a table called form with a field name, right? And we'll close it, and I think that's it, right? All right. Okay. And then let's have some data, maybe. Well, let's have data later. We have the movies form. Now let's insert in here, insert into field values for the name of the field. So it's maybe the title of the movie. The type is a string, maybe text. The form is movies. And the foreign key, well, okay, that's it, right? Those three fields. And we can have a couple more, right? So we can have title. What else? What else do we have? Huh? Rating? Yeah, rating. Maybe that's number. That's number. And we have the director. And this would be, oh, it's also text, sorry. And what else we have here? Maybe description, right? Description, just a text. So let's create this. Let me drop all these tables. These shouldn't be here anyway. Drop 16 tables. Refresh. Okay. Oh, they have to be removed in a particular way, right? Drop. Yes. Oh, come on. Drop 3 tables. There might be foreign keys. You know, some tables have foreign keys to other tables, and it might, you know, and doesn't like those that you're removing those references. And I think investigator has dropped the table now, and then what? Drop table. Are you serious? Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna waste time here. So let me run this form. Let me execute that. So I think it worked. Let me see what tables we have. Okay, there we go. We have form, which has just the column is just name, and I'm going to create now the fields. Here, let's create that, and this has now the fields table there, right? Which has the columns, name, type, and form, and we're going to insert into here. So let's insert first into the movie. We'll insert that, and then we'll insert these guys. Okay, let's insert that. Very good. This should make sure the data is in there. We can query it and say for the fields we have those four fields, and for the form we have just that one form, right? There we go. Okay, so we want to retrieve this from here. For that, we're going to use the MySQL plugin. So let's download that. Maybe I did already. Where is it? Here it is, right? This is MySQL connector that I had in here. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it inside of the lib directory. The lib directory, any jar file that you drop in there is automatically available to the web application. Okay, but it's not available to the Java or any classes that might be part of the other classes, right? That you might be. So for that we're going to need to modify the build path so that it sees that jar file. Okay, I'm going to point it libraries jar file, and I'm going to tell it where it is physically. It's physically under the webinf, the lib. There it is, right? That's where to find it. And so notice that it's listed there. And say, okay, so now the classes will see that jar file as well. An alternative and better way of doing this is using Maven. If you're familiar with Maven, if you've used it before and you feel comfortable with that, I would prefer that you use Maven, right? But I don't want to spend some, it's quite a while to explain how Maven works and whatnot. It's a package manager that downloads these jar files and installs them in the right place for you. But it's quite involved. Anyway, this is a quick and dirty way to get us up and running. All right, so I want to get a hold of that form. So I'm going to create here a class. Right, I'm going to create a class here. I'm going to use a package for this class following a very common naming convention where the package name is based on the URL, the reverse URL of your organization, right? So ours is neu.edu, so I'm going to go backwards, edu.neu, and then I'll go with the class name, this course, CS5200, and we are playing around with Jdbc, or usually be the name of the application here, right? So this is what is it? Web form editor. So I would say WFE. Okay, web form editor. And under here, we'll put the classes that do the same things together. We'll collect the classes that are related to one another in the same package. For instance, I'm going to first create the classes that are responsible for connecting to a database, right? We'll call them the data access objects, right? The objects are responsible for connecting to the database. So I'll put all my DAOs in here. Okay, we'll put it here, and my class, I'll call it form. Okay, form DAO, because they are interacting with a form table, right? Also, the naming convention sometimes is that we name the classes of the DAOs based on the names of the tables that they're responsible for. Okay, I'll create a main. Let's say fine, and okay, right. So this DAO, we would like to. Well, actually, let me see if I can run this just as a standalone. Just say system.out.println. println hello world. And let me try if I can run this just as a standalone, run as a Java application. All right, hello world. All right, so we can run it on its own, right? Independently on whether this is being used as a web application or not. So here we're going to host all the various operations that we want to do on that table, right? Typically, there's 5 operations that we want. We want to be able to retrieve all the records, retrieve a particular record, right? We would like to be able to insert records. We would like to be able to update records and delete records, right? Those are the 5 operations that we care, and we'll give them names, right? We'll say that we'll say public void create, right? Right? We'll name them. That's for the create. We'll say void for read all. So this return we'll read all of them. The other one is void read one, right? And the other one is so CRUD, right? So CRU update, right? So it's a public void update, and the last one is remove, right? Or delete, but delete is a keyword, so I'm going to use remove, right? So void remove. Okay. All right, so we're going to host all these in here. Right, the functionality is all within here. We want to do anything with this table, we go through the DAO. Right. Another thing we're going to do here is we're going to use a couple of utility functions that allow us to get a hold of the connection with the database. So we'll go public connection get connection. And the other one is to actually close the connection. We'll go with public void close connection. Close connection, and we take the connection as an argument. Okay. All right. So all of these are going to get a hold of the connection. Okay. A better way would be for the connection, right, to be given to the DAO. Right. That would be a better design pattern, especially if you have, if you need to be updating or manipulating 2 tables at the same time, right? Maybe the tables are related to one another, right? You want to be able to insert here, delete over there, update, different tables at the same time with the same connection. Instead of opening 2 connections, right, with separate DAOs, it'd be better if you could share the connection, right? We'll look at this design pattern a little later, right? For now, let's just grab the connection from here. The connection is one of the main classes in Jdbc, and it lives in the Java SQL package, right? Notice I do not want to use the other versions of this. Why did Apple take away my scroll bar? See, I can't deliberately scroll if I want to scroll. Anyway, it's not this one, it's that one. Okay, be careful. All right, so it's that one. So let me close that. This will automatically import it. There it is. Right, I selected it. It imports it. So let's grab the connection for that. We're going to use a cheat sheet over here. Let's look for Jdbc connection MySQL. So using the driver manager, there it is. Where is it? Driver manager, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there it is. This is what we need. Get connection. Yeah. Okay, I'll grab that. I'll paste it in here. So to grab a connection, we'll need a driver manager. So let's import that. Java SQL, there it is. It's listed in the Java SQL. This takes as argument the name of the database. Right, so we're using CS5200. Is that what we do? Right, is that what a database is called? CS5200, right? Get connection takes as argument also a username. I don't think I ever changed it, and it just set it to root, and no password. Okay, so it's going to connect to that. And this is going to be my connection. So connection, and I'm going to return the connection. So I'm going to say return connection. Okay. All right. What is it complaining about? Oh, it's complaining that this might throw an exception. So I'm just hover over it. I'm just going to say surround with a try catch. There it is. I surrounded it. It's all good. There it is. So I have the connection. So my create is going to try and open up and create something here, right? So let's do something here. Let's get a connection first. Connection so get connection. So I have the connection, and now I need to use an insert statement for this. So here's the string for the SQL. It's going to be insert into where? Form, right? Form values. What do forms take? I forget. Forms. Form is just a name, right? Form is just name. So just one argument, right? There we go. We're going to create a prepared statement. Prepared statement. Remember we said to use prepared statement instead of statements, yes? Because statements are susceptible to SQL injection, whereas prepared statement are not, okay? So I'm going to include a prepared statement and import it. There it is. Not the MySQL version. It's a Jdbc version. The Java SQL version. So statement equals connection dot prepare statements, and it's going to take us argument .SQL. There it is. It's complaining that this might throw an exception. I'm going to surround it with a try catch. There it is. Okay. Now that I have the statement, I can insert something here. I can say statement dot. I need to parameterize that question mark, right? I need to give it some value, right? So I already have a movies form, right? How about a form that allows you to, I don't know, insert your favorite CDs? Okay, so I'm gonna set that string, that first string. I'm gonna set it to CDs. I'm gonna create a form for entering CDs. Yes. All right. And what else? And then I have to execute the prepared statement. I'm gonna say statement dot execute update execute update. There we go. There we go. Update. Notice that the return type of this, it returns an integer. See that integer there? Meaning it returns how many rows were affected, right? How many records were affected, right? It's an insert. Obviously, going to insert just one, but we could have inserted several, right? CDs, right? CDs. All right. After that, we should close the connection. Right, so we should close the connection. We're going to say close connection, connection, and I'm going to pass the connection. Right, make sure that you always close the connection. Right, don't be the person who people start asking you why if you don't close them eventually. I mean, if it's just your database, it's fine, right? The connections eventually will time out. Right, you won't even notice, right? But if you're working on a database that is being shared by several developers, right, and each one forgets to close the connection, eventually the database will run out of connections, right? And somebody's going to yell, says, who's forgetting to close their connections, right? And don't be that person. Okay, so remember to close your connections. To close your connections, oh wait, what's going on here? Why is this complaining? The local, okay, so yeah, so remember to initialize these to null. To close the connection, we're going to have to say connection.close, right? But close throws an exception. Okay, throws an exception. So we're going to have to put this inside of a try catch. Okay. Yeah, to close that connection. All right. All right, let's keep it simple. So let's run this create, right? So I'm going to instantiate from my main, I'm going to instantiate the DAO. So the DAO is called form DAO. So DAO equal new form DAO. Okay. and we're going to create. So DAO create. Okay, and we're going to run this. We're going to run this standalone. Run DAO. So it didn't do anything. So I hope that means that it worked. So let's go to the database and query the form. Let's query this again. And yes, there it is. So we have CDs, right? So we were able to insert into this table. Now, notice that this is a hard-coded running of this. Typically, we would want to parameterize this, right? Maybe we could provide the parameters here as arguments, right? So this could be string form name, right? And then we could use this as an argument here. Okay. Notice that if we didn't use a prepared statement, we would have had to do something like this, right? We would have to do something like values, right? Concatenated with form name, concatenated with a closing. See that? That's very bad practice, right? Because that form name, it could be from somebody typing from the command line, right? Or from an input field or something, right? And they could copy paste something in there that is very bad, right? That could deliberately attack our system. Okay, so yeah, so no, don't do that. All right, so let's keep it like that. And so now it's parameterized. The set string will make sure that there are no funny characters in there. That there's as opposed to if you concatenate it, there is no validation, right? But over here, the set string validates that string, it has no bad characters in there. Everybody okay? All right. So now I can create forms, anything that I want. I can say create, and I can provide so CDs. I can create movies, songs, right? If I run this, okay, it didn't say anything wrong. Let me run this again. Let's see. Okay, there it is. So we have songs. So we can create forms programmatically. Yes, everybody good? All right. Let's retrieve all of these, right? Let's retrieve all of these. For read all, we might want to do the same thing. We're going to get the connection, get connection, right? And the string for the SQL will be select a star from form, right? From form. There we go. From form. Okay. So we're going to prepare the statement. Prepared statement. Statement. If there's no configuration, right? If there are no concatenations, whatnot, you could get away with just a plain old statement. Okay. So here's a statement. We're going to prepare it. Although I just like to just stick to prepared statement all the way through. So it says connection dot prepare the statement with the SQL. And there we go. This throws an exception, so I'm just going to surround this. And then I'm going to execute this, right? I'm going to execute this. I'm going to say statement, right? There's nothing to set, right? There's nothing to set. No configuration. We're going to execute query. There it is. Notice the execute query returns a result set, right? So an object that represents all the records that match your query. So results set, right? And I need to import the result set. There it is. I imported it. And I can then just iterate over this. So I say while results next, right? If you remember, result set does not load all the records and just have them in memory, right? That would not work, right? There might be way too many records to hold in RAM, right? So it's a live connection that goes and fetches more data as it needs it, right? So I'm gonna, although it gives us an API that looks as if we can just iterate over all the records, as if we all have them all available, right? But they're not really behind the scenes, right? Anyway, so let me retrieve the name of the form. It's the only column we have, right? The name of the form. So we're going to say results dot get. I know it's a string. I know it's a var char, the name, and the column name is name. That's the name of the column, I believe. Yes, and we're just going to print it out. We're going to spit it out. Out dot println name. Okay. So yeah. So let's go back and instead of create, let's select all of them. So I'm going to say DAO dot read all. Okay. So we're going to call that DAO there. We're going to run it, and there they are: CDs, movies, and songs. Right. And I have the bad habit to use the plural. Anyway, notice that we're not capturing that data anywhere, right? We're just printing it out to standard output, right? Ideally, we would want to capture that somehow, right? In some data set, so that we can keep doing something with it. Maybe display it in a page or something, right? So maybe what we could do is put it in a list of strings, right? So let's do that. Or what have we learned about object-oriented technology, right? What we should do is really create abstractions of our data, right? If I tell you that a date is made up of 3 strings, right? Month, day, or 3 integers, right? A month, day, and year. Would you represent it with those 3 integers, right? What you would do probably is wrap it inside of a class, right? That has those 3 integers, right? And then you would create a whole API that would allow you to manipulate this as a date, as opposed to manipulating as 3 integers, right? So same thing here. These form names, right? Instead of dealing with strings, dealing with low-level strings and arrays of strings, a better approach would be to create a data model that mimics, right, as close as possible, the data model in the relational world. Okay, so instead of having these low-level strings, a better approach would be to instead create a class that can hold all that data, right? So I'm going to put it in a separate package. I'll put it in entity. And I'm going to create a class called form, right? That can hold all the data about a form, which is very simple, right? It's just a single string, right? In this case, but it could be something more sophisticated, right? So let's create that, and there's our form. And here we're going to have a simple private string name, right? And the schema of our object model mimics very closely the schema of our relational model. Okay, and that's on purpose, right? For this, we should also have setters and getters, because notice that the field is private. We'll create what? Source generate. Huh. Okay, I'll create it myself. Public void set name string name, this name equal name, and public string get name, and then return this name. Okay, so these are the setters and getters for this particular data model, right? Plus, we would want also a constructor, right? So let's create a constructor. So public form. It's always a good idea to at least have the default constructor, especially if you override it with a specialized constructor that takes other arguments. So this name equal name, right? Remember, if you provide a constructor other than the default constructor, you have to provide the default constructor. Okay? Well, you have to. In our particular case, you have to, right? And I'll come back to this why you need to, right, a little later. Anyway, so let me rewrite the DAO to be a little more object-oriented, right? Instead of dealing with low-level primitive data types, right? So instead of accepting this primitive data type, ideally you would get a form object, right? You get the form, right, which we need to import. All right, so it's an entity. There it is, form. And the name of the form, you will get it from the form, get name. Okay, so this is a much this is a little higher level, right, of abstraction than dealing with primitive data types. Yes. Okay. We're gonna do the same thing for the read all. Well, actually, let's test this to see if it works. Right. Let's try this out. Let's create a new form. So form DAO. So let's create a form new form that takes as arguments employee. So we have a form for employees, for entering employee data. And now our create actually takes as argument a form object, right? As opposed to just a low-level string. Make sense? And hopefully this should work exactly the same way. Okay, didn't complain. And if we go back and we refresh, we have the employee form. Everybody okay? All right. And the read all, now instead of just throwing away that the data, just printing it out to the console, right? What we could do, right? It's collect all the data in object-oriented instances, right? In objects, and collect them in a list of objects, right? And return a list of objects that can then be perhaps rendered in a web page. Okay, so let's do that. Let's create a instead of returning void, right? Let's return a list of forms. Okay, let's return a list of forms. Let's import list Java util. So let's create the list of forms, right? So these are my forms, and this is a new array list of form. And initially it's empty. It's an empty array list. I need to import that as well. And worst case scenario, if something goes wrong, we're just going to return just the empty forms. It's an empty list of forms. I never got a chance to put anything in there. All right. But if everything goes right, as we iterate over this, we can instantiate new forms, right? We can create new instances of these forms. Oh wait, return forms. Sorry, return forms. So instead of just throwing away the data, right, what we could do is create new instances of form. So form equal new form with the name, right? We just grab from the database. We're going to put it in our list. So forms.add the form. So if everything goes right, this is just going to iterate over all the form names, add them to the list, and then return the list of forms. Make sense? All right. So over here, after having created these forms, we're going to read, and we're going to receive the list of forms here, right? So here's the forms. We're going to receive it from the DAO, and these are my forms, right? Once we get the forms, maybe we could just print it out to a standard. I mean, we're not going to do anything with it yet. We're just going to print it out just to make sure that we're all set. We're going to iterate over the forms. So for each form in forms, okay, just print it out. System.out.println form.getName. Okay, all right. So let's try this, see if it works. All right, there they are, the four forms, right? Okay, so I think we're ready, right? Just with what we have, we are ready to perhaps use this in a web page, right? To render this content in a web page instead of displaying hello, right? Maybe what we could do is display those form names, right, in a web page. Okay, so for that, I'm going to create a separate page, call it forms. I'm just going to call it forms.jsp. And in here, I'm going to have H1 say that this is forms. And I want to grab those forms from the database, right? So I'm going to reuse that DAO. Instead of calling it from my main, I'm going to call it from here, from the page, right? So to do that, I need to import, right? I need to bring that DAO into my namespace. To do that, I'm going to say import, right? And I'm going to give it the fully qualified name of that class. The fully qualified name is the package along with the name of the class. So I'm going to go to forms. I'm going to paste the package dot form, DAO. Oh no, not entity, DAO, right? DAO dot form DAO. There we go. Anyway, if I mistype, the compiler is going to tell me. This is I can't find that right in your class path. If I type it right, it'll be happy. There it is. So we have the DAO, right? So the same thing we did here in the retrieving the DAO, right? What do we do? This is what we did, right? So let's copy that. Let's go to the JSP, and we're gonna want to go into Java. Now we're in Java. We can paste Java code in here. It's complaining because it can't find some of this stuff. Okay. Right. For instance, it can't find the entity class. It can't find the list. So let's import those as well. The list lives in Java util. So let's load that. So comma Java util .star. I'm just going to load everything in there. And let's see. Okay, now it's happy. It found list, right? It can't find form. Form is in this package. It's an entity. So let me put here comma entity dot form. Okay, so now it's happy. Now it sees everything, right? So instead of printing it to system out, right? I'm just going to say out. Out is a magical object. Notice that nobody has defined it. Nobody has declared it. It's an object that was defined by the framework, by the underlying framework. It allows you to output to HTML, right? It just allows you to stream text back to the to HTML, right? So if I run this, now I'm going to run this in the server. So I should be able to just access it from here. So instead of hello.jsp, it's the forms form. Did we call it forms? JSP, and it didn't work. Is that what I call it? Forms. Oh wait, I put it in under WebInf. Obviously, this should be under web content, not under WebInf. Okay, hopefully it deployed. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. We got the forms, right, and the four forms that we had originally. Let's make it, just a little bit prettier. Let's open this up with UL, right, and UL down here, right, and instead of what we could do here, right, is instead of spinning this out like this, there's a prettier way of doing it. I'm going to remove that. Right, I'm going to say, okay, I don't want Java anymore. I'm going to stop Java. All right, meaning I want to go back to HTML, just plain old HTML, and then this curly bracket also belongs to Java, right? There we go. And so basically we've made a parenthesis saying I want to go back to HTML. Okay. What I want to do in HTML, I want to open up an LI and close an LI, right? And then I want to go back to Java because I want the form name, right? The form name lives in Java. So one quick way that I can go back to Java really, really quick, for a parentheses, I can say I want the form and I want to get the name. Okay, there it is. So I can embed Java HTML. So let me refresh this. And there it is. So now it's a CDs. How about deleting? How about removing? Right. Well, removal. Let's go back to the DAO where we can do all the testing. Right. Let's remove. Let's see. Remove. So remove could be what? It could be. It's the same thing. Let's get a hold of a connection. Right. Connection. Get connection. Right. And did we close the connection here? We forgot to close the connection, didn't we? and the read all. Yeah, so we want to close the connection. Actually, it shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be part of your code. It should be part of what we call a finally clause, right? A finally clause. Notice that if we try to close the connection here, what could happen? We say close connection here, right? Like we did earlier. What could happen? It could be that something goes wrong up here, right? We throw an exception somewhere right here, and where would we go? We would skip this line of code, and we would go to the catch. You see that? And we never got a chance to close that connection. You see that? Right. So what we want to be able to, what we want to do is we want to remove that here and put it in the finally clause. The finally clause is guaranteed to execute, regardless on whether the method successfully executed or not. Right. The very last thing that happens, even before this return, right, is that we're invoking that close connection, right, and we're going to close it. Okay. All right. All right, and we also did it over here, right? We made that mistake over here in the create, right? This should live in the finally clause. Finally, we're going to change that close connection. We're going to put it here. Okay. All right. Everybody good? All right. All right. So let's go back to remove. We got the connection. We're going to do what the SQL that we're going to use is what we're going to say delete. From form where ID, right? Actually, no. What are we using from form? We're using just the form name, right? Which we're going to say name equal and then some configurable, right? For remove, we could take as argument the name of the form that we want to remove, right? So string a form name, right? And then we can prepare the statement, prepared statement. We're going to say con.prepare statement. We're going to give it the SQL. It's going to complain, right? So we're going to surround this with a try catch. We're going to configure that question mark. We're going to say statement dot set string question mark string, the first string, right? We're going to set it to form name. Form name. There we go. Right, and then we're going to execute this, right? We're going to say statement dot execute update, right? There it is, right? We're going to execute update. We'll remove it. So let's test this. Let's remove. Let's see which one do we want to remove? Let's we have CDs, employee, movies, song. Okay, so let's remove CDs, right? So we're going to say. We're going to do DAO dot remove CDs. Okay, and then we're going to retrieve all the forms, and hopefully the CDs won't be there. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's run this. There they are, employee, movies, and songs, and the CDs is not there. If we go back to the database and we do a refresh, notice that CDs is no longer there, right? So, but we want to do this from the server. Right, we want to do this from the server. So what we're going to do here, there's several ways that we could do this. There's several ways that we could do this. One way is to use servlets, okay, but that would entail me explaining servlets and getting all here. So I'm going to stick to something simple. I'm just going to, well, I hope it'll be simple. I'm going to post to myself with a command. Right, I'm going to do this. Watch. I'm going to here. Right, I'm going to say, well, here's my list. Here's my list that I'm creating, right? I'm going to create maybe like a remove button or something, or remove link, right? So I'm going to say here, I'm going to create a hyperlink that's not pointing to anything just yet. That has like an X, right? Has an X. For an X, I'm going to use the times entity. All right, so let's see how that renders. There it is. So it's an X right next to it, right? So presumably clicking on that X I want to remove that form. Okay. All right. So to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to send myself to my JSP, right, to myself, a command. Right? I'm going to say, I'm going to submit it to myself, forms.jsp. I'm going to sell an action. I'm going to say action remove. Okay. I'm going to post to myself, meaning I'm going to navigate not to another page. I'm going to navigate to me. Right. So let's see how that works. I notice that up here, if I refresh, right, it's just forms.jsp. If I click here, notice that there's the question mark action equal remove up there. See that? Not only do I need to remove, really, I also need to know the ID of what I want to remove, don't I? Right? So in that URL, I can also pass other arguments like ID, or actually no, the form has the name, right? So the name, and I would like to pass the name here. Notice that we already know how to embed things, right? There it is. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to embed it right here. That's the name of the form. I'm going to pass it to myself, right? So I'm going to refresh this and refresh. If I click here, notice that I have, there it is, name employee, name movies, name songs. You see that? Right? So what I could do is parse, right? Parse the action and parse the name and then take action, right? So for instance, what I could do is the very first thing, right? Retrieve the action, right? So I could retrieve the action from the request. This URL, that is the request, right? That represents the request. And this is called what it's called a query string, right? Anything after the question mark is the query string. And each one of these are parameters, right? And there's a parameter, that's the parameter name, that's the parameter value, parameter name, parameter value. And the ampersand is used to delimit the name value pairs. Okay? So the request, just like there was out was a magical object that allows us to print to the HTML, request allows us to interact with that request that's coming in. Okay? One of the things that allows us to do is get a parameter. Now give me the parameter action, right? Which is this one, right? That one. And it returns the value. Okay? Yes? So now I have the action. I have the action. I also want the name of the form. I can request dot get parameter name. Now I have both the action and the name. Yes? Okay. And I can ask myself if action equals remove, right? Then I want to do certain things. What do I want to do? I want to remove the form, right? But wait a minute. What if I navigate to this page just like this, where action doesn't exist, right? If action doesn't exist, what is action going to be? Null, right? So this action dot equals is going to give an exception. It's going to give a null pointer exception. So we can fix that by swapping this around. What we could do is swap, put remove as a string out here, okay, and test whether the variable action is equal to the string remove. See that? So action could be null or it could be actually remove. Yes? So if it is remove, this is true. If it's nothing, if it's anything other than remove, if it's false. Yes? Everybody okay? Right? Okay, so now, actually I need the DAO earlier, right? Now what I want to do is says, okay, if it is remove, what do I want to do? I want to do DAO dot remove, right? And the name of the form. Yes? Correct? Right? Oops. Right, so let's try this again. Let's refresh this. Oops, it removed. Remove movies. Wait. Wait a minute. Did it remove it? Refresh. What did I remove? Wait, something went wrong. Sorry. Was the integrity blah 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 violation cannot delete or update a parent row. Foreign key blah 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 contains a field foreign key form. Oh, wait. Does a field have a foreign key to this? Oh, it does. Don't it? We create a whole bunch of fields, right? And we're trying to remove a form that has fields associated to it. So the database is stopping us from doing that, right? You know, good for you, database. So yeah, so we definitely can't remove movies. Can we remove employees? Yes, we can remove the employees. So the employees are gone, but we can't remove the movies, right? It's stopping us. It's not letting us, right? And it's throwing all these exceptions and complaining to us, saying, you can't do that, right? You're breaking referential integrity, right? And that's the whole point of using relational databases, right? Right, that stops us from doing these kinds of things. Anyway, before we go, what time is it? Oh, is it okay if we create a form before we go? Okay, all right, let's do that. So I want to create a new form. So for that, right before the UL, right before the UL, I want to create a little form here with an input field with the name. This is the form name, the name of the form, right? And it's a type text, type equal text. Okay, and I want a submit button, right? That allows me to submit this form. So I want a button type submit. I think that's the default, and I want it to say create. So create form. Okay, and I want this form to be submitted. I want this form to submit it to myself, right? So I'm going to say this is a form whose action is to submit to me form.jsp, forms.jsp. So notify me, right? Oops. Notify me. Okay. And what you're going to give me is the name of the new form. That's the name of the new form. But you also need to tell me an action. And the action is that you want to create, right? So let's put here a hidden field, meaning this is which is going to be of name action, right? The value is going to be create, and it's going to be type hidden, meaning it's not going to render, right? It's not going to render. Okay. So let's see. Let's refresh this. Let's remove this. Let's start brand new. So here's form, and there's a create form. If I type anything, I say notice that goes up here. The name is that, and the action is to create, right? So we can very much do the same thing we did earlier, right? We can ask ourselves. We can say else if, right? Its create is equal to our action, right? We can do DAO.create and pass the name, right? Actually, we need what? The DAO, don't we? We need the form object, because now the create is smart, right? It takes only the object form, right? So let's create an instance of form. So form, new form. It's going to be new form, and it's going to take as argument the name of the form. There it is, and we're going to pass it as argument to the create. Yes. Right. So let's try this again. Right. So let's type in here companies. Create. There it is. So it has companies. Has tables, restaurants, right? Create forms. And if we go to the database and we do a refresh, right? All these are being inserted. There are tables, restaurants, movies, right? See that? Right? So that's this is a very, very beginning, right? Very, very basic, but you can see how you could extrapolate that this could become something much more complex, right? I mean, there's tons and tons of other things that could be improved, but that would entail me talking about a lot of web technologies that don't pertain to this particular course, right? So this is the bare minimums that we need as a UI interface, okay? Be able to retrieve data, update data, create data. Well, we didn't do create, right? We did delete, we did read all, we did create, right? We still need update, right? And we need read one, but you can see how this could be extended very easily to support that. Okay. All right. Let's see it here. And let me stop the recording. Where is that? Where is the recording? Okay, so let's start broadcasting.